I'm gonna do what my granddaddy taught me to do. And stand up for family. And fight back. Because we've been in the perspective for too long.
Long live Tilly!
They don't expect that. We're not gonna have our kids marching. This is it.
Once and for all!
Justice for Patrick!
Justice for Patrick!
Justice for Patrick!
As a black man, I stand up for black women.
I don't want to say another motherfucking name! Kanye Jordan! 400 years later, not a damn thing changed!
I stand up for black women because it's what I'm supposed to do.
It's all one fight. The same people that suppress the vote, they'll suppress your living rate.
It's standing up for freedom, a freedom that knows action, a love that is in action.
Enough is enough!
I'm not sleeping and I'm not done until we get justice.
Ain't no curling, people don't stop.
What's got to go? Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Mexico, what's got to go?
Why is everybody, why is the police fighting against us, but they're supposed to be helping us? That doesn't make sense.
If black women don't do it, then it don't get done. That's what I'm hearing.
When I say gun, you say no.
Don't forget what we did today. Today is history. Don't just go home and say, hey, let me post it. Live it. We just have to be stubborn enough. We just have to be strong enough. We just have to be relentless. Black lives! Black lives! Thank you all. I pass the mic to the next person. Black women matter.
Day 1.
It ain't no reward to kill our people.
Day 1.
So the protest happened on June the 1st, 2020. I heard about the protest through social media as well. I remember that I felt this urge to really go. I think we were all fed up with seeing black people be killed, having your own experiences with police brutality as well. I think it just reached a boiling point. I was at my job the day of the protest, which was in the same street that the protest was happening at. And I remember not really expecting anything. And then when I walked from my job to the square, I saw a bunch of people, which was crazy because I didn't expect it. There wasn't any place really to stand. I was preparing myself for the worst, actually. Police acting out, the possibility of getting arrested, all of that stuff. So I was pretty anxious. But once I saw that everyone was just standing there in peace, I kind of got calm, but I was still paranoid, knowing that things could go bad at any time. It was my first protest ever. I had never been to a protest, so it was a big one. How did I experience the protest? There were different emotions. I remember being very emotional. And I remember the organization that organized the protest not really being prepared for the amount of people that showed up. So the sound wasn't that great. But I think it was pretty new. It felt pretty new to me to kind of basically scream about my life on a square that has such a history that it has. Because the city center of Amsterdam has very visible art that represents the history of colonization. So standing there, knowing that that's the history of the square and screaming Black Lives Matter, yeah, it's kind of a weird feeling, an odd feeling. I remember after the protest, I kind of got angry about certain things, you know, different people trying to make the situation about them. I remember a lady standing there asking people if they ate meat and kind of protesting about animals' lives. And in the moment, I didn't really realize how disrespectful that was, but after I got home, I kind of got mad about it. And you just basically saw lots of people and communities taking that opportunity to stand up for their rights as well, which is okay, I guess, but you can ask yourself the question if that was the moment to do that. But it was a crazy time. And I remember lots of people getting mad at the black community in the Netherlands, getting mad at the protest because it was during the first lockdown, I think, or right before the first lockdown. I'm not sure. But COVID was very actively a thing. It was pretty new, so people were anxious about that as well. So I remember people being mad about us protesting about Black Lives Matter and being mad about the whole COVID situation. So it was a weird time. Yeah.
These protests, the Black Lives Matter protests, impacted me on various levels in life. One was that it was for me one of the first times that I actually openly, without pushing myself back in the message I would like to deliver on racism. So when I spoke at the Black Lives Matter demonstration in The Hague, it was the first time that I wrote a speech within my years of activism in which I did not hold back in my message. I was no longer afraid to state out what I saw, how I experienced it, and to actually take people into that experience. What I also noticed is that it was one of the first times in my life, for as far as I can remember, that institutions, whether it was the media, whether it was educational institutions, whether it was ministries, municipalities, that they actually followed up on a clear message on anti-racism and police violence. So I found out about the protest because one of my fellow activists on anti-racism in The Hague contacted me about it I think maybe 2 days in advance. It cannot be more than 2 days in advance. So that's how I found out. It was very last minute organized because it was first the day before it was in Amsterdam and then the day after it was in The Hague. So that's how I found out about it. And it also went in Dutch context, it also went almost viral on social media. So a lot of people knew about it, but I do not think we expected it to be that big. So for me, I was a bit nervous because I was going to speak.
When do we want it? Zo, ik ben helemaal geëmotioneerd door mijn kind. Ik denk, oh, mijn kind. Maar we hebben nog één laatste spreekster, Riiziane. Een jonge vrouw, student hier in Den Haag. En die wil ook graag haar verhaal met ons delen. Een heel hartelijke shout-out, Riiziane.
Ik doe een klein stukje af, omdat jullie me anders niet horen. Bij racisme moet je biechten of je toont berouw. Als wij het woord racisme laten vallen in elke willekeurige ruimte, ontstaat er een ongecontroleerde veenbrand. Alle mensen die hier vandaag zijn, die voelen zich verbonden met de brandwonden. Alle mensen die hier vandaag zijn, voelen zich verbonden met elkaar.
Hi, I know you want to get back to your live stream, but I want to take this minute to talk about Images by Patrick. Hi, I'm Patrick, and I've been a professional photographer for over 25 years, specializing in actors' headshots, professional headshots, family portraits, and much, much more. You can find me at www.imagesbypatrick.photography or find me on Facebook at Images by Patrick and get your image on. Now, back to your live stream.
And there was, at that point of time, there also was a sort of secrecy in which we went to these protests due to safety concerns. So I was overall nervous, very aware and alert on everything around me. But as soon as I arrived at the protest, I felt very safe because there were that many people. So...
What were some of the chants?
Sorry?
What were some of the chants you all knew?
Some of the? Some of the chants. I cannot really remember, but it was Black Lives Matter, no justice, no peace. Say Her Name for Breonna Taylor was not as loud and often repeated in The Hague because we had a very, just in general in the Dutch context, we had a very big focus on George Floyd. So I would say the actual trigger in the Dutch context, or at least the context in The Hague, was when we found out about the news on George Floyd.
I mean, the whole world was in an uproar. And I think what stood out with Breonna Taylor, this was about a woman. And there's a lot of outrage about what happens to black men. You know, I'm a mother of 3 black boys, so of course I understand that, but stuff happens to women too. And so that was very significant for me in this particular protest. And just the innocence of it all, this young woman who was sleeping in her bed. So yeah, it hit me deeply, it hit me personally. But it was part of this larger movement that was felt, that reverberated all over the world. And so the fact that, you know, attention was paid to a black woman, that was very important to me.
When did the protests start in Amsterdam, and how long did they last?
I know there was a big protest on the dam. I don't know the exact date, but I sent my son because I felt it was important that he was there. I felt important that he experienced it, you know, and he thanked me later because he said it does something to you. And, you know, growing up in Amsterdam, you're used to protest. You know, in the 70s, like every weekend there was a protest. I marched in protest. But it's already so much a part of my life that, you know, so I didn't go, but again, it was important that my child went. And then what I ended up doing, I did a lot of like healing sessions for protesters. Not a lot of sessions, but I did sessions for people who marched and were in the protest. And so I work more in the background in that way as opposed to being in the protest itself. So after the dam, there was another protest and, at the Bijlmerpark, which is a black part of town. It's in a park. I knew the organizers, and so I was asked. It was very well organized because, of course, they were concerned. It was also COVID. There have been protests in other parts of the Netherlands, and what stood out to me, what I recall about that day, first of all, there were a lot of people. I think something like 15,000 or something, but also a lot of the speakers were young people, which I thought was very good. And so I had my 3 minutes, and so I knew 3 minutes isn't very long, so how can you add something that's not already being said? And so the emphasis in my speech, and which is always my emphasis, that this is about us, this is about all of us, and who do we want to be, and what does it require of us, and what racism does to us, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And that's what I talked about, and really encouraged people to connect and to, you know, that it's not about us versus them, but that it's about all of us. And you know, what are we willing to do better, to create something different.
And so what this asks of us, because this work is hard, but this asks of us is that when you come to the cable, when you come ready to do this work, that you bring all of yourself. And that's the challenge. Because racism is so insidious. This thing has been going on for 400 years. And it's not just about what is out there, but what it has been doing to us. We have been ingesting this racism, and it is in our pores, and it is in our beings, and it is normalized. And so we don't question when somebody puts us down. We don't question when our stories are not heard. We don't question when we are marginalized, because it is normalized. And so the challenge is, we come with our rage, we come with our pain. The challenge is, we all need a detox. In America, we said we all drank the Kool-Aid, which is a horrible reference I'll tell you about some other time. But we all drank the Kool-Aid. Toni Morrison says racism is a distraction. Somebody else said, no, it's not a distraction, it's systematic. What I'm telling you, racism is tiresome. Racism drains your life energy. Racism drains your humanity from you. And so that is the fight. So that when we show up to do this fight, when we show up to do the structures, how can we do it with the fullness of our humanity? Because it is tricky, and you don't notice. And we look at each other like, well, that one is a little bit dark. Well, she's a little bit lighter, like she was just telling you. Because it is in us. That's how tricky it is. So we have to work, and we have to detox that nonsense that is scraped within us, that is so stuck within us, so that when we come up and show up to fight, we can bring all of ourselves in our full humanity, because that's what it takes.
Are you ready to transform your organization? Schal Solutions provides capacity building services for leaders and teams ranging from strategic planning, program evaluation, and organization management training. For more information, please visit http://schal.solutions. Schal Solutions.
In the Netherlands, there's this holiday called Sinterklaas, which is comparable to Santa Claus, but a bit different. There's this white man with a white beard and some white hair in very, I would say, classy clothes, I think, going around the city. And he has this book of all the children's names in the Netherlands. And the holiday is basically about if your child acted good or acted bad. And if the child did good, there's this figure called Black Pete, which is a white person dressed up as a black person. It's blackface. Black Pete wears a curly wig, paints the face black, and wears red lipstick, black gloves, and tights. And they act out very happy, sometimes stupid. Back in the days, they used to have Surinamese accents too. And they would either give the child a gift or kidnap the child to Spain. And that was kind of the fairy tale-ish thing. But it's a very colonial holiday. It's connected to slavery as well. In certain parts of the Netherlands, it's actually a very demonic holiday as well. But I guess they changed it around. And good thing to know is that our people have basically been protesting Black Pete for over, I would say, I don't know if I got this correctly, but about 90 years now. They've been protesting it, and in Amsterdam you don't see them as much as used to. But in other parts of the Netherlands, it's still a very normal holiday that's celebrated. And there's this organization called Kick Out Zwarte Piet, Kick Out Black Pete, and they protest every year to get Black Pete to get banned. And during those protests, they deal with lots of aggression, getting cursed out, threatened. They get death threats too. There's people, children, that throw eggs at them, beat them up, all of that stuff. And the police actually participates in that too, and all of that footage is on YouTube. So, yeah.
Weg met bruine Piet! Feest voor iedereen! Zich te verzamelen om feest voor jouw kind! Feest voor jouw kind! Feest voor mijn kind! Feest voor mijn kind! Feest voor jou! Feest voor iedereen!
My message to our fellow activists in Louisville, Kentucky is specifically that I would like to thank you for raising your voice, and even though it's a very tough struggle, your protesting has a lot of impact overseas. Because if it wasn't for your
but a bit different. There's this white man with a white beard and some white hair in very, I would say, classy clothes, I think, going around the city, and he has this book of all the children's names in the Netherlands. And the holiday is basically about if your child acted good or acted bad. And if the child did good, there's this figure called Black Pete, which is a white person dressed up as a black person. It's blackface. Black Pete wears a curly wig, paints the face black, and wears red lipstick, black gloves, and tights. And they act out very happy, sometimes stupid. Back in the days, they used to have Surinamese accents too. And they would either give the child a gift or kidnap the child to Spain. And that was kind of the fairy tale-ish thing. But it's a very colonial holiday. It's connected to slavery as well. In certain parts of the Netherlands, it's actually a very demonic holiday as well. But I guess they changed it around. And good thing to know is that our people have basically been protesting Black Pete for over, I would say, I don't know if I got this correctly, but about 90 years now. They've been protesting it. And in Amsterdam, you don't see them as much as used to. But in other parts of the Netherlands, it's still a very normal holiday that's celebrated. And there's this organization called Kick Out Zwarte Piet, Kick Out Black Pete, and they protest every year to get Black Pete to get banned. And during those protests, they deal with lots of aggression, getting cursed out, threatened. They get death threats too. There's people, children that throw eggs at them, beat them up, all of that stuff. And the police actually participates in that too, and all of that footage is on YouTube. So, yeah.
Weg met bruine Piet! Feest voor iedereen! Zich te verzamelen om een feest voor jouw kind! Feest voor jouw kind! Feest voor mijn kind! Feest voor mijn kind! Feest voor jou!
My message to our fellow activists in Louisville, Kentucky is specifically that I would like to thank you for raising your voice, and even though it's a very tough struggle, your protesting has a lot of impact overseas. Because if it wasn't for your activism, if we weren't informed about the way you give a voice to innocent black people that are murdered by the police, we in the Netherlands, or at least me, would have not been empowered to continue the very difficult struggle. Because sometimes you need to see what your fellows abroad are doing to actually get in touch with your own impact again. Because it's a tough, very, very, very tough form of activism, which is very difficult and complex, but my message to you is just gratefulness and thankfulness.
I would say be proud of what you've already achieved. I mean, when you all got that law passed, that reverberated, that was inspiration. And I know it's easy to look at what hasn't been done yet and what still has to change, but know that the sacrifice that you all have made, and I know you've been sacrificing, that they're paying off, that they're making a difference. People are watching. You never know who's watching, who's listening, and who you're inspiring. But take care of yourself and take care of each other, because don't do the work and then burn out and disappear, because that happens a lot too. We need you to do this work, but we need you to be healthy and be present in this new world that we want to create. So keep up the good work.
This is truly a worldwide movement. And wherever we are in the world, we can find unity. We can come together. We can zeg haar naam.
Zeg haar naam.
Zeg haar naam.
Zeg haar naam.
Zeg haar naam. Zeg haar naam.
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor.
Breonna Taylor.